Hi YouTube, I kept some camel spiders a couple of years back and I thought I'd lost all the footage that I took of them at the time, but I've just come across it, so I thought I'd put it up and show you. So this is a fluffy camel spider. It's quite obvious, isn't it, because it is covered in these little hairs. And this is a really lovely species. If you're thinking about keeping camel spiders, I thoroughly recommend this particular species. Um, But yeah, camel spiders, they've got other names as well. They're called SOLIFUGIDs. They're called wind spiders or wind scorpions, and they're called sun spiders as well. So look out for them under different names if you're trying to buy them. It took me a while to come across this particular species. The other species that is not covered in small hairs is much more readily available. Right, so in captivity, I kept them in these kind of shallow trays, but you have to keep the sand reasonably damp because they like to dig. And if you keep the sand dry, from what I've read, they die very quickly because they get stressed out. And also, when they're trying to dig, the sand just keeps collapsing on them all the time. So yeah, keep it reasonably damp, and they will spend actually a great deal of their time just digging little tunnels. So another important thing to do is to give them things that they can dig under. So things like flat rocks like this are a good idea. Bits of flat kind of bark as well are quite good. I put some sort of curved bits of bark in with them as well, and they sometimes go under those without digging a burrow and just hide underneath a bit of curved cork bark. Okay, so I'll show you some kind of typical digging behaviour, so you can see what that's like. You can see they've got pedipalps as what looks like their front pair of legs, but they're not. They're pedipalps, those long ones, and then they've got two smaller pairs of actual legs, and they tend to be using those for the digging, so pushing the sand around with them. I mean, they use their jaws as well to move the sand about, and they also kick sand behind them as well. They'll pull the sand under them, here you go, and kick it out from under them, depending on what sort of burrow they're digging at the time. So with the rocks, if you're putting rocks in their cage, flat rocks, just bear in mind they can dig so much that they dig right under the rock, and then the rock could actually fall on them and squash them. So you need, like, underneath the flat stone, you need a couple of other flat stones that are kind of supporting it and holding it up, and then they'll dig in the middle. But you can see here, quite often they will dig where there's no rock as well. They'll just dig just a general hole and then try and put themselves in it. What I love about these, well, just camel spiders in general, is just that they are so freaky looking. I mean, they're one of the most hideous looking creatures in the world, aren't they? But I love them because of that. They just look like some kind of weird alien from a movie. Like, there's no kind of sci-fi thing that is quite as creepy as these are. Just look at those jaws at the front there. They're absolutely massive. Can you imagine, like, if this thing bit you? I mean, the chelicerae are huge, and the actual, like, jaw muscles must be massive. So you just think, like, if it bit you and decided to cling on, it would be really quite painful. I mean, there are lots of myths about these things, and you can understand why, just because of how creepy looking they are. So there's a myth, because they're called camel spiders, there's a myth that they kill camels. Um, there's another myth that they're, hugely venomous. There's another myth that they can run at 25 miles an hour. I mean, they can run quite fast. I think they can run up to about 10 miles an hour, but not 25, I don't think. So yeah, so loads of interesting tales of them biting people's fingers off and that kind of thing. It's true, like when you show people these, when they come round, you go, check out this camel spider that I've got. They go, why would you want to keep that? But it is just the fact that they are so kind of ugly looking, and their habits are quite interesting. And when they eat, it just looks horrific. But it's just really good fun to watch. I don't know why. It's probably from me watching too many interesting 80s horror movies and creature features as I was growing up, that's made me love this kind of thing even more. I could honestly sit and watch them, like even just digging like this. I could watch this for hours, this kind of behaviour. I have got some footage of it eating and things later on, but for now you can just watch it digging. I think it's fascinating enough, just the movements of it, just watching it with its jaws and its front legs and just everything working at once, just trying to dig itself a hole. And I guess in the wild, because they live in deserts, it's vitally important for them to dig their burrow, because if they're out in the heat of the day, they're going to dry up pretty quickly. They need to be down where it's humid. So interestingly, I was told that these guys only live for like 2 or 3 months. And I bought them in an October at a entomological show, and the next October, most of them were still alive. Interestingly, the ones that I kept hotter died pretty quickly. The ones that I kept cooler ended up living for well over a year. Um, and I'm not sure if that was something special I did or just because I kept them a bit cooler. They were still eating and they were still displaying all their kind of digging behaviour, making burrows. Um, but yeah, I never managed to breed them. But they did, like I say, live well over a year. So let me know in the comments if you've kept them and yours have lived for a similar amount of time, because everything I read always says they only live for like 2 or 3 months. My thought was that in the wild, although they live in kind of desert like locations, they probably dig their burrow down so that they can hide from the sun in the heat of the day. And maybe they dig down low enough that actually, where they are for most of the time is quite cool. And then they tend to come out at night to eat. And as you know, like in a lot of deserts, at night time it actually gets really quite cold. So I'm wondering if people are generally keeping them a bit too hot. That was my thought anyway. In a humid burrow, obviously they're not going to dehydrate. And if they're coming out at night, where it might be quite humid anyway, there might even be sort of dew droplets and things around, they're not going to dehydrate then either. So I think it's probably the dehydration, just keeping them a bit too hot, that makes them die prematurely. I did buy a load of the non-fluffy type of camel spiders as well, at the same time that I bought these guys from the same show. So if you check out my other videos, I'm going to post some of those up as well, so you can see the difference between this type and the other type. In fact, the other type, because they're not fluffy, they probably look even creepier, to be honest, because they got like long, spindly legs, and yeah, they're just a bit even more hideous looking than these guys. Sorry about the camera being sideways on here. I always forget and I always hold the camera the wrong way round. Um, yeah, they quite often dig along edges of things, so edges of rocks or edges of their cage. And like I say, they will spend like hours each day making a burrow until they've made one that's just right, and then they'll just go under it and hide, which is a shame if they're hiding like all day long. But what's really nice is, you look out for them like in the evening when they come out, and then you can kind of throw crickets in and watch them eat and things, and it's much nicer when it's kind of natural, and you're not stressing them out all the time by them not having a burrow. If you kept them without any burrow, I think they would get stressed and again they'd probably die prematurely. Yeah, the show that I bought these camel spiders from, like I say, this type and the non-fluffy type, I think I bought about 12 camel spiders altogether, because I really wanted to try breeding them. And I'd never kept them before, and I just thought if I get myself a good number of them, I've got more chances of being able to breed them. It never happened this time round, unfortunately, but I will try again in the future, definitely, because I just find them so kind of fascinating, and it would just be amazing to actually get that to happen in captivity and have some babies. Generally, once you've bred something once in captivity, you can do it again because you've learnt how to do it. And also you can show other people how to do it and pass the information on so they can as well. Okay, this is what happens if you put a cricket in and the camel spider is not interested in eating it. It gets a little bit kind of defensive, and it does this kind of threat display where it's kind of waggling its jaws about and just backing itself into a corner. So maybe this cricket was a bit too big. I don't know, or maybe just the camel spider wasn't hungry at the time. But I have fed them crickets this big before, and they've taken it. So I think it's just if they are hungry at the time, then they'll eat pretty much anything, even things that are closer to their own size, I think. But yeah, this one on this occasion wasn't interested. I've got another clip coming up where it wasn't interested either. But there's one at the end where it does eat, so I'll show you that because that is like the creepiest thing. And the other thing is when they feel a bit threatened, they've actually got hairs on their chelicerae. So when they rub their jaws together, sometimes that can make a sort of a rasping noise. Yeah, and this rasping noise can be quite threatening, you know. So if you found one, if you lifted a rock up or something and there was one underneath and it felt threatened and did the sort of rasping noise, it might make you think twice about going near it. Or if you just saw it, you'd probably think twice about going near it as well, to be honest. But anyway, in some locations where these are from, obviously you get venomous snakes, you know, like not just rattlesnakes, but other types of snake as well that would, if you found them under a rock, they would probably hiss at you. So maybe it's a similar thing, like it's mimicking the sound of a snake hissing, and that just makes you kind of back away from it. Yeah, probably one of the reasons it was feeling a bit threatened as well by the cricket is because I put two crickets in at the same time. So when you feed these guys, if you're not sure if they're hungry or not, it's probably a good idea just to put one cricket in at a time. So you don't freak them out quite so much. I think they're quite sensitive to vibrations as well through the sand. They can feel if there's a cricket around. The reason I think that is because I've had it in the past where I've put a cricket in one corner and the camel spiders run out from another corner and got it straight away. Okay, so here's one that has grabbed the cricket and started eating it. And quite often what they do is, you know, if they're not particularly hungry, they just kill the cricket and maybe just have a couple of slurps on it and then just leave it like that, which it can be a bit annoying. So what I found is if I take it, you can see the sort of the juicy bit of the cricket there. And what I try and do is just put that juicy bit of cricket in the jaws or as close to where the creature's going to be kind of sucking the juices as possible, and quite often that persuades them to carry on eating it, and then they'll finish off the rest of the cricket. It saves wasting the cricket and also fattens up the camel spider, which is what we want. I would definitely recommend taking out any crickets that they don't eat in a feeding session. Don't leave a live cricket in with them because it might just carry on freaking them out like for the whole night. So if they don't eat it, you know, fairly straight away or while you're actually watching them, just remove the cricket and then you can always try again the following day. I know that's kind of similar with tarantulas as well, and also like if a tarantula sheds its skin, you know, it can quite often get eaten by the cricket while it's doing its delicate skin shed. Okay, thanks very much for watching, and hit subscribe to see more videos like this in the future.